Are you interested in innovative education and diversity in school models? Do you see a need for something different to bring about a reformation in our current education system? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join us for this special summer series where we will introduce you to the HERO Project. HERO stands for Heartland Education Reformation Organization and is focused on providing support for unique faith-based schools. These creative Christian learning environments, such as homeschool co-ops, microschools, and hybrid schools, are popping up all across Kansas and throughout the Heartland. The HERO Project offers continued support for this movement. I am your host, Dalena Wallace, founder of the WISE Network and president of AIM Educational Collaborative. Welcome to our summer series of WISE and Otherwise, where we will be highlighting the unique role of the church in supporting a reformation in education through the HERO Project. Okay, today I have with me Kaely and Camala from Light Academy. They have an amazing hybrid school model here in the Wichita area. It's a faith-based school. They are part of the WISE network, and they have a school that is meeting in a church building, which I'm so excited to hear about these models. They're going to tell us a little bit about how they got started. So Kaely and Camala, welcome, and please tell us about Light Academy.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. Like we said before, we love talking about light. It's one of our favorite things to talk about. We could talk forever about it. And
how long do you have?
All of the stories. It's everything. You can just see God working through the whole thing. But our story started with I was ready for my daughter to start kindergarten. So she was, getting ready. She was 5. And I just didn't want her gone all day. She was doing preschool. That was 3 mornings a week. And I loved that. But we moved to our house for the school district. And that was just what you do is you send your kids off to school when they go to kindergarten all day. And I just really wasn't ready for that. And my sister lives in Spokane, Washington, and she had been kind of homeschooling her kids. And I say kind of because they have so many options in other states. Like they have charter schools. She was doing a hybrid program where her kids would go half day. They could go 2 days a week. They'd go 4 days a week. They were doing electives. And it was through the public school. And so I called her and I was like, how do we get that in Wichita? Like, how do we make that happen? And she said, well, Tech, their school, was started by a group of moms. It was a group of moms who wanted something different. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing that. So because in Wichita, all of my friends would get together and talk about how they're so excited for their kids to go off to kindergarten. And, we can get together and have coffee during the day. And I'm like, I don't want my kids to go to kindergarten. I was just very isolated and different in a way. And so I homeschooled her that first year of kindergarten just to keep her home. And I loved it. I loved the time with her. She kept telling me she had 4 little brothers at the time. And she would say, I just love being home with my boys. And I was like, how long is she going to have that? The sibling relationships. And there were so many beautiful things. And I thought, okay, I'll do first grade too. But I went to school all the way through, like in a real, I say real, in a private and full-time school is what I should say. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, she's missing out on some of the things that are really cool about a school and having peers, and her curriculum comes with games that she was playing with either me or her brothers. And so I was we had like a girls' night right before when the kids were in first grade, and we had a girls' night. There was probably 10 of us at this table, and there was only 2 of us who were homeschooling. One of them was like hardcore homeschool mom, loved doing it by herself, had, structure, curriculum, schedule. And I was like, I just want somebody else to homeschool for me so I can play with it. And so I was sitting at the table, and that was when the moms were talking about they're so excited to have their kids go off to school. And I heard across the table, Camala was there, and I heard her say, oh, I just wish I could have my kids home more. And I'm not going to homeschool because I don't want to teach them, but I don't like them being gone all day. And I wish they could just go to school part-time. And I was like, oh, we need to talk. And it was just kind of like, that was such a God thing. Wow. And I think I was maybe pregnant with my 6th at the time. And so it was kind of like, I was almost like, oh, we need to talk. And I think we talked not long after that, but before that, I was calling our school district and said, I have a homeschool kid who's going to be in 2nd grade. Can I just send her for core subjects? Because public schools let you go for PE and science and, the extracurriculars. And I was like, I want someone to do language arts and math, someone who's a real math teacher and a real language arts teacher and, has learned how to make that fun. And they were like, well, we've never had anyone ask that before, but I guess we could talk about it. We have board meetings coming up, and we'll kind of present it and we'll see what happens. And I'm not going to tell Camala's part of the story, but we found out when her and I connected, she was calling the exact same people that I was calling.
Oh my goodness. That's so funny.
Both of our hearts the same way. And, he was directed to the same exact person. And so they were kind of like, well, maybe we'll put it on the table and we'll talk about it. And that was fall of 2019. So then spring, COVID hit. It was spring of 2020. And so everything obviously fell apart. They were like, we can't even think about adding anything extra because they had to do virtual school. Yeah. So in the meantime, I was still homeschooling. Her twins are the same age as my oldest. And so they were in school full time. And that's when like COVID stopped their schooling and she had to be home with them. So do you want to tell us?
Yeah. So I sent my kids to half day kindergarten at Mays. I was public schooled. I'm a hygienist. I don't know anything about teaching kids how to do anything as far as academics go. And so the thought of homeschooling never crossed my mind. I grew up in a tiny town where the homeschoolers were farmhands homeschooled, so just the homeschooling community was not anything like what it is here. And so it just never even crossed my mind. So my twins did half day kindergarten and we loved that schedule. I had one more baby. And so that was kind of her sweet year, just her and I, when the twins went to half day. And then it was turning time for them to go to first grade and it's an all day, every day. That's the only option. And I was feeling so sad about it, but also like, well, this is just what people do. If you don't homeschool, like everybody's just ready to six their 6-year-olds off all day. And so I just thought, well, it's just going to be terrible, but we'll get used to it. It'll be fine. And that fall semester of 2019, it was terrible. None of us liked it. I noticed that, well, I just was missing my kids and feeling like I'm home all day with their little sister, and missing out on their entire day. And by the time they would get home, especially my son, he's like a closet introvert, I would say, but he thrives with downtime or one-on-one time. And so in a classroom of 20 kids, he feels pressure to be the smartest, the fastest, the funniest, the whatever. And so he was exhausted when he would get home, like on a different level of exhaustion than even my daughter. And it was so hard for him. I feel like we lost our relationship a little bit. I felt like any sort of like discipleship, like family time that I was really looking forward to in that stage of life, beyond just like discipline and yes and no, more conversations about like why we do what we do, were gone because they were just so tired. Anyway, so we got to Christmas break that year and, we kind of limped through the semester and we had just some downtime and it was like, there they are. Like, they're my kids. There's their real personality. There's the family connection time. And it's like, it's time. We just need time that doesn't exist in our home because they're gone so much. And so, spring semester 2020, I was talking to, it's crazy, even all the timing of all the things. My childhood best friend lives in Michigan now, but we had sort of reconnected over Marco Polo. Marco Polo, the new app, was coming out, and I maybe it's not new, but this is when we kind of started using it. And so what used to be, a letter here and there, a birthday card, we started connecting over Marco Polo and just talking a lot, and it was so much fun. But she recommended a book by Emily P. Freeman called The Next Right Thing. Also the title of Anna's song in Frozen 2. But anyway, so she's like, you should, so I was just kind of talking with her about this and she's like, you should read this book. And so when you talk about, feeling called by the Lord to do this kind of thing, I was scared to death to do anything different than what I'd already planned. But that's a little bit of my personality too. Like, I already decided to do public school. It'd be weird for me to change my mind. That's irresponsible. I should have known. But anyway, so spring semester, I just started thinking like, man, it would just be so nice if they were in a building where they had real teachers, that they were doing the things, but just in less time. And I was thinking, it worked for kindergarten and they weren't behind when they went to first grade. Why don't we have this for first grade? And so I reached out to their teacher because even their schedule, and I know it's not the same for everybody, but their schedule was designed where core curriculum was done in the morning and then their afternoon was filled with the electives or just kind of like more practice of the skills that they learned in the morning, centers and I think 3 recesses, intervention time. And so anyway, I just asked their teacher, I said, was there any way that I could just come pick them up around lunchtime and I would do whatever center worksheets you have? Because I got twins, it's more fun than just one. I've got 2 of them. I'll do whatever worksheets, I'll do whatever intervention, I'll read whatever it is that you want me to read with them. I'll do all the things. I just would love to have them home. And she didn't care. She was like, I think that's great. And so she's like, I obviously need to talk to the principal about it. I'm just not sure. And so we talked to him and he didn't care, but he was like, I feel like I need to ask some questions about attendance and thing. Anyway, so he did some research for me. And because we weren't registered as a homeschool family, if I would remove them from the school building, they would be counted as absent every single day. And then that was going to be a truancy issue. And so he's like, we can't do that. But, it's something to think about for next year if you want to enroll as a homeschool family. And then we can maybe talk about part-time options. But he then referred me to the assistant superintendent that Kaely had been talking to. And I became the next person asking those questions. It's working in kindergarten. At that time, Mays had 6 half-day kindergarten programs. They don't anymore, but at that time they did. And I just said, I really feel like if there were 6 classrooms full of families who desired a part-time option, you could fill at least one first grade classroom, probably, maybe do kind of a stagger start where you do half day and then maybe to 1 o'clock and then maybe to 2 o'clock, that kind of thing, adding in as they get older. And she's like, nobody's really asked me these questions before. And so this was happening at the same time and we didn't know, but she's like, let me do some asking. I don't know. And then COVID hit and everything sort of came to a halt. But so when COVID happened and we kind of realized our hope for a partnership with the district wasn't going to be a reality, at least for the next year, it was like, we're going to have to figure out something else. So we called all over the place, we looked at all of the faith-based schools. We talked to a school in Newton that had a part-time option. And nobody did. And we heard messages like, well, you could, but nobody really does. And you'll probably be behind or, it just weren't, it wasn't something people were wanting to do. And I understand, like, if that's not your vision, if that's not your model, don't make exceptions for the new people, whatever. I get that. But the more we got into it, was like, if this is something we want, we're going to have to figure out how to do it by ourselves.
Yeah.
I am not an entrepreneur at all. I don't try new things. I don't like to try new things, especially when they have a huge potential to fail, when I don't have anybody to model after or tell me that it's going to work. I value predictability so much. And then especially at the expense of my own kids. I was like, if I try something and it tanks, I've done something horrible for my own children, And so there was so much fear in me. I mentioned that book earlier, but the book is about like just doing the next step. Like, what's the next step for you? And it's not about 10-year decision or how this is going to affect your entire life, but what's the next thing to do? And so the next thing kind of looked like, well, let's have conversations about what it could look like.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit tell me what Light Academy looks like right now. What does a typical day in the schedule look like? And then I'd love to hear about how you were able to partner and find a church that was willing to host you guys.
Yeah. So our schedule right now kids can choose. We've grown enough that we have 2 different 2-day options, but kids choose to come 2 days a week or 2 mornings a week. And so that's what we started with. Let's pick 2 mornings a week. Let's not pick Mondays. Let's not pick Fridays because we can go on vacations. Let's do it in the middle of the week when we have to be here anyway. And so 2 mornings a week, kids come for language arts and math instruction. And so at the elementary level, they each have their own classroom. So kindergarten, there's a kindergarten class, first grade, all the way up through 5th grade. And those teachers do language arts and math in the same room. So grade-based curriculum. The middle school is a different story. That's part of like the evolution and the evolving. But for elementary, that's it. We've added some elective options as we've grown, where kids can stay for lunch and choose to take an elective course. But that, again, had to do with middle school kind of and our schedule and drop off and pick up stuff. But sorry, I'm talking a lot.
No, okay. I was just saying the core instruction. So we do drop off at 9. School is 9:15 to 12:15 for the elementary grades. And so they just do language arts and math, but our teachers are actual classroom teachers who have taught before. So, kindergarten will do carpet time and calendar, and it's very much like what you would do in a regular school setting.
Yeah.
They do the wonderful thing that we've even heard from some of our students. We had some students come and said, like, they went home and said, Mom, they pray before every lesson and they pray before they eat lunch. And then we end our day with prayer. And she was like so excited about that, coming from, she was in the public school and it was just really, she was struggling. And and that was just a visitor. She was just visiting for a day, like it did a shadow day. And so that's what's cool is our like, we're not technically like, we don't have religion time or a faith-based class. They do language arts and math. And our curriculum is, Singapore. It's not even like a faith-based curriculum necessarily, but our teachers are just overflowing with that all the time. So the structure is language arts and math. And then our secondary kids, which is 6th grade and up, we included science as part of the core. So they go until 1:30. So they have 3 core subjects that are being taught. And their placement is kind of based on their math scores because math is kind of all over, especially if you homeschool. We have, seventh graders who are ready for 10th grade math, but we have 10th graders who need seventh grade math. So we kind of place them based on their needs, based on test scores. We really want to not just be, a co-op is more like exposure, where you're exposing students to a whole bunch of different subjects, which is wonderful. We are part of a co-op, but we want this to be mastery. You are going to master language arts before you go to the next grade level, and you're going to master math before you get to the next grade level. And if you don't, we have tutors over the summer that you can come get tutoring, but we are moving on to third grade when you're in third grade, and we're moving on to fourth grade. So that's kind of our goal, is not just show up and hang out and play and socialize. That is a bit, but we value mastery over exposure.
Yeah, I think that's such a wonderful service that you're providing for the families like yourself that want more time with their kids. So the hybrid model is like my favorite style. I've homeschooled for years and I've homeschooled for over 10 years, but in the past 5 or 6 years, I've kind of worked just partnering with a friend. It was the same thing. It was like, let's share the workload. I don't want to do this alone. I can't teach that subject, but you're great at this. I'll do this one. So that sort of thing. And I think just the hybrid model of giving parents more time to do what they want to do as a family and to learn together at home, and then to come together for the things like these core courses that you offer. I think it's just such a wonderful blessing and a gift that you're offering for families. I love your style. Love what you're doing. How did it look for you as you were trying to look for a space? And did you know you wanted to meet in a church building? How did that process all come about?
Yeah. We knew that when we were talking about starting that we didn't really want to do it in a home. We wanted it to feel like going to school, like going to a building, whatever. But we also knew that we had no people and no money. And so we were thinking about like, where's a building that already exists, that already has classrooms, that might even have a playground. And so, that idea was kind of born immediately. Like, the church doesn't use Sunday school classroom space during the week. They use them on the evenings, if there are small groups that meet there, or Sunday mornings, and the rest of the time it's open. The building is open. And we went to the same church. So we started just asking of our church.
And our pastor immediately was like, do
it.
He
was like, yeah, great. Absolutely. I love having kids in here. It'd be exciting.
What classroom do you want?
Yeah. So, and then even asking, we hired one teacher. We started with just second grade because that's how old our kids were. So we were going to start real small. But even that, we all three went to the same church, but her kids are older, and it's like you run in the same circles with people who have kids the same age. But so I knew who she was. But when we were talking about like starting, it was like, we need a teacher. We need a real teacher. So like I was just thinking about all of the teachers that were at our church that used to teach, that are staying home now, or used to teach in our subs. I was like, I feel like we have a plethora of resources, and we just need to find the right person, And so I started thinking about teachers in the building already. And what's crazy is Katie Eck, who was our first teacher, she and I were meeting with the same mentor at the time. So we weren't friends, we weren't running the same circle, but we were meeting with the same person. And so I was sharing my heart with my mentor and feeling scared about trying these things, but like excited about this idea. At the same time, Katie was telling the same person, I just am really tired of subbing in the public school. I just really wish that there was part-time something, maybe in a church building, maybe with just a few kids. I can't make this up. Like, it sounds made up, but it's not made up. Like, that's what she was dreaming about. And we had never had a conversation about it at all. And so that was like February. I think it was Super Bowl weekend. They were talking about it. Yeah, Super Bowl party. So in February, the mentor was like, I think you need to talk to Camala and Kaely. And then my mentor told me, she's like, I had this conversation with her. You might. Anyway, so I remember after church one Sunday, I went up to Katie and I was like, it was me. It was us. Can we talk about it? Anyway, and so like she just cried and I cried. And it was like, we have the same idea, but from like, you're the teacher, we're the parents that want to do this thing. And so we just started meeting together. We met outside because it was COVID. It was weird. We met on Katie's porch and got our computers out and tried to figure out what kind of things we could do, and just started planning from then. And so, yeah, our church said yes right away. His only concerns were like liability insurance and what does that look like? So he took it upon himself to call the insurance company and say, hey, I'm going to have maybe this many kids in the building from this time. What does that mean? And it was adding a little bit of liability insurance to their previous plan. And did they even charge at the beginning?
It was included in the barely any building rent, but
yeah. So they added a tiny bit
Nice.
of liability to their insurance policy, and they covered it for us, and then charged us a
Wow.
tiny bit of rent for that one space. But we got to use their gym, and their kitchen was right there, and the playground and the yard. And so it's like all of the things that you need at a school are there.
and we're empty.
And we're
other
empty.
than that,
And we're empty.
we
So
just had offices. Yeah.
we
So
shared
great.
space with classroom space. You know, they didn't give us an entire classroom. So we used I think it was fourth grade at the time, Sunday school space. So like they let us, so we said, can we like put things up on the walls? Can we have a whiteboard? Can we have a TV? You know, the kinds of things that you would need in a classroom. Number line, letter line up. Yeah. So we decorated half of it and left the other half Sunday school. You know? Yeah. But we had a little wheelie cart that we could lock up, and we had totes that were, you know, put away. All of our things we would put away when we would leave. But we used the same tables, the same chairs. We didn't buy anything that first year other than a whiteboard and the wheelie cart.
So that was in your first location. That was in your home church at the time. And then did you expand, or what made you need to move locations?
So we started, like we said, we just started with that one class of second graders. And a lot of those families were like, hey, I have a friend who has a third grader next year. I said, I have kids who are younger. And like even two of mine were old enough. They were kindergarten and first grade when Macy was, and so we had enough that people asking, just coming to us without us having to recruit, saying, can you open up a few more classes for these other kids? And so we went back to the church and said, can we have like a kindergarten through third? We were just going to move up with those kids. So second grade, then third grade. So can we have K through 3? And they were like, well, I think we can make that work. Like they kind of worked through some things and gave us a few more classrooms. But even that, the teachers, it was such a God thing. We didn't have to really go recruit hardly at all. We were, we'd be sitting in our homeschool co-op, and a mom was, Rachel said something like, I'd love to go back to teaching a little bit. And
Would you?
There's so many things like that. Like she was showing her family the classroom. This is what light is. And the fourth grade Sunday school teacher was like, oh, I love what you're doing. And she was like, come teach for us. And she's like, actually, okay. She was a retired teacher.
My goodness.
Taught for years and years and missed the classroom. And so, everything was that. It was just, God, here's your space. Here's your families. Here's your teachers. And so, that was such a beautiful thing. So the very first year, when it was just that one classroom, we would have all of our parents write a check to our teacher every month. They'd bring them to me, I'd record it, and then hand her a little stack of her 9 checks for that. We did the same with the church. So then when we knew we had K through 3, I was like, I will not do that. We became a nonprofit. So that's when that summer was nonprofit corporation, and we opened a bank account so then families could write their checks to Light, and we could distribute as needed from there. So then that was our year 2. We had K through 3. How many kids did we have?
36
kids. Yeah. Cause we would cap our classes at 10 that first 2 years. So 36 kids. So we went from 9 to 36. And then same thing at the end of that year, it was, hey, I have kids in preschool, and I have kids. What about older kids? Like, what about middle school? We have so many families coming and like hearing just word of mouth. Would you do this? Would you do this? And we were like, maybe, but we were outgrowing our space. We were already using more, like they were even like, we could clean out a storage closet and give you but I don't think kids will fit in there. Like we needed space. So do you want us to talk about like finding?
Yeah. Tell me about your current location and the type of partnership that you have with your pastor. I see you guys have painted the rooms. I mean, I've been there to visit. Like the theme is beautiful. You have tons of space, a whole children's wing. So it's such a blessing. And it seems like it's obviously a mutually beneficial relationship between the church and the school. Would love to highlight that. So what does that look like for you guys?
Yes. So we were outgrowing our church, and we were like, we've got to find somewhere. And we started emailing like just big churches in town. Like I'd drive past the church and be like, oh, they're really big. I wonder what that's. That was how it started. And so there was a friend, we met with several churches. One church, there was a pastor who was like, I love this idea. And they were already using their building for like during the day. They had co-ops. It is used from like 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. And he's like, but we have this land out there. You can just put a building out there, like so fire.
Oh, awesome.
You know this person.
Yes.
Someone you might know.
It was just so like,
amazing.
that showed us like our current church was more like, we don't, they were more hesitant, not wanting us to take over their building. But then when we met with this guy, and he was like, oh, I would love this. And so I actually had coffee. There was a friend that reached out to me that I met in like this other mom's group. And she said, I'm considering homeschooling my kid. I'm nervous about it. Can we just have coffee? So we met for coffee and just talked about homeschool. Like that was it. And what I do and talking about light. And she's like, I might be interested in light. And I said, well, hold on. We're trying to find a new space to make sure we have, availability. And she was like, you should just check with my church because they just built a new children's wing. So their old one upstairs, I think it's just empty. You could just email them and see if they're using it for anything. And I was like, okay, can't hurt. I hadn't tried that big church yet. So sent an email when I got home and just said, I heard that anyway, right away. It was like within the next week, they said, let's, have you come in for a meeting just with one of the pastors. And so we met with him and he was more talking about like, what would it look like? What do you need? But then we heard, he's like, we just had a board meeting. We've been praying about having a school. Like we use that space for a school. So they were like, we have the space, but not the school. And we were like, we have the school, but not the space. So we've been praying for space. They've been praying for a school. And so just matching up with him, like it started the kind of business. And then we met with the head pastor. And this is one of our favorite stories is we met with, associate pastor. And then he's like, come back and we'll do it again with our head pastor. And so on the way to that meeting, we were praying on Voxer, Voxer message. So Camila and I are driving and Katie, the one that started it with us, the teacher, was like, let me just pray for you guys on the way. So we're listening, we're praying, driving. And she prayed the verse for such a time as this, from Esther, from Esther, like, God, you know that you have prepared us for such a time as this. And so we're just praying. And that was one of the things that like stuck out. We get into the meeting and Pastor Bob says, let me just pray for us. We had talked a little bit. Let me pray for us. And we sat there and we started praying and he prayed the same verse, almost what Katie said. He said, because God, you know that you have prepared us for such a time as this. And Camila and I we opened our eyes. That was just I know we would leave this every time we had a meeting. We were like, can we schedule another meeting just to talk with you guys, just to pray with you guys? Because the things that they were saying, like there was a school, Trinity is a really big private school out east. It started here in this building. And he was like, I didn't know that. Like the West Side Trinity, like maybe we just want to have, we use our space for that. And that's where Pastor Bob was like, I've never heard of this model. I don't even know what
Pastor Bob is a teacher too. He was like a real teacher and a full time. So he's like, tell me about this homeschooling thing.
Yeah. Tell me. And he said, who am I to get in the way of God?
Yeah.
If he's moving in this direction, who am I to say what our school is supposed to look like?
Oh my goodness.
And they kept telling us, ask for more, dream big, ask for more. And we'll tell you if we have to, because we were so hesitant. Like they were like, how many classrooms do you need? And we were like, how many do you have? So just those stories are just constant. And then even you tell the painting stuff.
So we met with them in May? It was at the very end of the school year. Yeah. Because we had met with several other places. Anyway, so
our first meeting was June. I emailed them in May. Our first meeting was June. And they gave us the space. We moved in August and started school in September.
And they were finishing the remodel project over the summer. So we didn't get into the building. And it was in August before we got to the building to set anything up or to bring anything in. And so we didn't have time the teachers brought their things in, but we didn't redo anything for us or whatever. And it was cute. It was a kid's wing. It was fine. But then as we were here for the year and then we were talking about staying, we plan to stay if you're cool with us staying. And
we have more people when we have more
people. Yeah. Can we update the colors? Like, can we paint? And the facilities manager, we couldn't sing his praises enough. I feel like Jesus and John is his name. Like, Pastor Bob's in there. They're all together. John, even John, I don't know. In the building that we're in, we have the room that we're in, we have windows and we were meeting up here talking about the building and the space. And he's like, are you ready for what's getting ready to happen? He's like, you better hang on. He's like, you're going to have a big school here. You see all this space. Anyways, it's just so sweet. All that to say, we asked if we could paint and he was like, yeah. He's like, what are you thinking? And I was like, well, how about if I come up with like kind of a design board idea? Like we just want to do fun stuff with our colors and make it white instead of tan. Can we do that? And so I made a design board and showed it to him. He's like, yeah. He's like, we'll provide the paint if you provide the labor.
It's not only we were growing bigger. And so like this wall right here, they built that wall. That was not a wall. This was one giant classroom. And we were like, we have more rooms. Is there a way we can have more space? He's like, I'll just put a wall right here. And they came and they built
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's amazing. Like, provide the labor, we'll provide the paint. And we didn't ask for that. We were planning to like maybe fundraise or Mr. Nutter and Mr. Blasdel, can we paint?
Well, it's so exciting every time I hear your story again, and just like come and visit and see what the Lord has done. I think it's beautiful. Like, I love, you guys just kind of stand out as a beacon of light. Here you are, Light Academy, and it's like, this is an ideal model. It's one way that churches and schools can partner together, and there's so many, varieties to what this can look like. But it's just so beautiful how open the pastor and the staff was there, and the congregation, to allow you the use of this space, and how the Lord orchestrated, like so clearly orchestrated everything for you. It just like confirms that this is something that God is doing. He's at work, and he's doing something big, and we get to be a part of it. And just to see you being obedient and faithful to follow what the Lord's calling you to do is incredible. And the same thing, I love what you said, the pastor said, who am I to get in the way of God? Like, that's incredible. He saw the moment, he saw the need and the ministry opportunity. He already had the vision. They've been praying about it. So I firmly believe that there are many other churches and pastors who are also praying, and that the Lord is stirring something inside of them, that they want to have a school, or they want to support. Like, how can we support this movement of Christian education? And I love seeing all these innovative models, like the hybrid thing. Like, what's that? That's new. Okay. It doesn't have to look like a big traditional, mega school across town and big brick building or whatever. It's like, no, we just need some classroom space, or we just need a fellowship hall. We can do a one-room schoolhouse type thing. So I think there are so many different ways, as many different churches that there are out there. There's that many different models and opportunities to be innovative. So I love hearing about this. One of the things I'd like to ask you about is, how has this impacted some of your students? Have you heard some personal stories? Have families come back to you, or students, to tell you, like, this is the difference this has made in my life or in my student's life?
Yeah.
Yes, so many.
Yeah.
We have moms who can't even, like, when we try to have like a meeting or something, she's like, I'm not even going to talk because I'm just going to cry, because it has. And so one specific story that I was thinking of that just happened this year. Well, it's happened twice just this year, but kids who were super anxious in the school system. We had a mom who called in the middle of the year and said, my daughter can't sleep at night. She's having fits of anxiety. Like, all the school is just not a fit. We need something part-time. She's been with us just this last semester, maybe a few months. And she was like in tears on how her daughter just has her confidence back, and her joy is back, because it's a safe place. We just hired a teacher who came, and she wanted to come, like, see the building and meet the kids. And she said, every time I come here, I just cry, because the kids are joyful. Like, they are, what did she say? Like,
you can just feel, they're just excited. They're excited to learn, and they are actual kids. They're
safe. Yeah. Friends that they,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I very much agree with that. And the environment, just the atmosphere when you're there, there's so much freedom. It's like the kids are just light. Like, they're just like, it's not, there's no heaviness. There's no fear. There's no discomfort. It's like just light, and light in the Lord and in his presence. And I feel it, and I sense it. And I get that from you guys. You're so energetic, and I can just see the life coming from you and your teachers and staff. And it just shows on the students and on their faces, and in the whole children's wing that you guys have.
Yeah. The pastors at this church have even made comments that they love looking out on, like, the playgrounds when they see a bunch of middle school and even high school kids out there. And they're like playing ball, and because we don't allow phones at school. So no phones allowed at all. They can be in your backpacks, but they're not out there on their, texting or on you. I don't know what kids do these days, but I love looking out there and seeing the big kids play and laugh and run around and act, and sitting on the bleachers and talking and face to face. So even it's noticeable by people who aren't even involved in life. That was the groundskeeper, one of,
that's
right,
right,
Clint. Yeah,
that's right.
Nice. Camila, were you going to say something?
Trying.
No, it's fine. But you were talking about like, it's obvious like God is doing something and we're just obedient to, like, I would say that about our families. Like, we were praying for this and this was an answer to our prayer, or we were moving from an area that had this and we didn't think Wichita had it. And now it does, those kinds of things. So it's like, we don't hear people's prayers. We don't know. Yeah. And so just for other people to say like, we've been praying for this, or this is such a huge answer to our prayer. It's like, well, obviously this is God's story. We just stepped into it and we're trying to just be like we joke kind of, but like every year it's like, okay, what's next, God?
Do I dare?
Okay, well, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's just story after story of, how we've hired, I think I counted like 7 new teachers for next year. And even all of their stories, like, I was feeling like I was really called to public school until this year, and I had my second baby. Like, this is what I need, and it's like everyone's stories are all like God's stirring their hearts, and it hasn't been time, but like this year's the time. And I even think about things like we're adopting a new curriculum this year, and one of our teachers that we hired, who I've recruited for years, she was in my small group and I've recruited her for years, and like she was working on her master's and she really loved being where she was, but she helped pilot this specific curriculum in the school that she's coming from this year when she decided that it was the right time for her family. So it's like, you can't make that stuff up. You can't plan that, I mean, there's a zillion different curriculums. There's hundreds of teachers. But like the one that is kind of the expert in our area about this particular one, she's coming this year. And so,
that is so amazing.
Pick that stuff up.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. To see that God has a plan and he's working on all the different levels and everyone who's involved, pastors, congregations praying for schools, parents looking for options and concerned and what are we going to do next, teachers and educators who are like, I want something different, or I'm willing, I feel like the Lord's calling me to invest in a Christian education, or do something different. Even the children who are praying to get out of maybe a toxic environment and they want something but they can't afford those traditional more expensive schools. So, or the homeschool mom like myself, it's like, oh Lord, please bring the help. Oh, please bring the teachers. So, it's amazing. We don't even know how many answered prayers have happened or have come about because of Light Academy and because of your obedience and the Lord's faithfulness and his, orchestrating everything. It's so exciting. So usually I ask people, go ahead. Tell me.
You made me think of something else. And partnering with the churches, you said something about people not being able to afford other models. That's another beautiful thing about partnering with a space that already exists, is if we owned our own building, tuition would have to be so much more expensive just to pay for the building upkeep. But when you're partnering with a building that already exists, that already has all of the things, and we obviously pay rent to them, but far less than we would have to pay if we owned our own space. And so it becomes then less exclusive for the families that don't have the opportunity to send to full-time private or whatever the other options are. You can keep the tuition lower in that way. And that's a way that the church supports the homeschool community too.
Exactly. Yeah. So usually when I'm ending up, I ask people like, what are some ways that your church could further partner with you and support you? And when I asked you guys this question a little bit earlier, you're like, our church is amazing. This setup is great. They've done above and beyond. We're so blessed. I think it's beautiful. And I would agree. It just seems like you guys have an ideal situation there. But with our project, the HERO Project, which stands for Heartland Education Reformation Organization, we really do want to make churches aware of opportunities to bless and encourage and support school founders like you and these innovative, creative Christian learning environments that are popping up. So if they can't host a school in their facility, we give them a couple of options. Like there's 3 ways you can support a church. You can open your doors and let them meet there. You can sponsor an existing faith-based school, and you can do that by providing encouragement and prayer or volunteers, or offer to make lunches or bring snacks. Like there's so many ways that you can show your support. And the third option would be to provide scholarships for students to attend a faith-based school like yours. So do you have anything to add to that, or other ways that you feel like the church could be supportive of what you're doing? You're on the mission field. That's clear.
I love those ideas.
Yeah, I do too. All of them.
Yeah.
I think that I would encourage churches. It kind of goes with this. I think that I would encourage churches that even if they can't open their space, to really view it as a ministry. I think that if churches understand that, we've talked about this a little bit, even as a staff, it's like, when we think about the culture that we have here, Jesus had 12 disciples that he walked and did life really closely with, and then sent them out. And so if we have this really beautiful, sweet, intentional time with even a small group of kids in your small church, if you have any classrooms at all, that's a small group of kids that could be there with this intentional community disciple making that then become a ministry. And it's not just about reading and writing and math. It becomes a ministry. So like, if churches can understand that having this community of believers while they're learning math together or learning about life and all the aspects of life, that can then go out and be in the ministry field. Like, if they can just wrap their minds around that, I think that maybe we could view school differently, like, oh, we don't have space, or we don't want a school using our, but what if you think about it as a ministry, not just a school? And then just figuring out when ministries partner together, the more people you can reach, so
something else that our host church has talked about is they're like, we have staff members who have, they've taught theology, or they have a heart for apologetics or something. Would you guys ever want them to come teach for you, or come teach a class, or could they come do, I think the youth pastor was like, I'd love to come just hang out with your middle schoolers at lunch, and just, that. So even if they're in the building already and you want to come do that type of stuff with the kids, that's just another person, another adult who, there's a bird yelling at us. There is another adult who loves Jesus, who is safe and in your school, who's like wanting to pour into the kids. So even if there's people like that who they're not able to offer a scholarship or pay for a kid's tuition, but they just want to come do, hang out with them, or
Absolutely. Well, keep up the amazing work. I can just so clearly see the Lord blessing your efforts, and I pray that continues. I'm sure it will. I'm so encouraged to hear about how things have happened with Pastor Bob and the church there. It's amazing. So if families want to learn more about you and Light Academy, how can they find you?
Probably the website. I mean, we're on Facebook, but the website is probably the easiest, like one stop, because you can then email us or fill out an interest form. Or if you just want to come, we've had several people who have said, I kind of want to start this in Manhattan or on the East Side or in Hutchinson. Can we just come? And so they just come and hang out, and we show them around, or we talk like, here's our documents, here's what we did. Just come visit us. We love to show people around and give tours, and just talk about if they want to do their own thing, or what would this look like, or, and then the students, if you're interested, you can come do a shadow day. So if you're a second grader, you'll sit in a second grade classroom for a day, and that way they get a feel for it. The teacher gets to feel for it. Like, the kid gets to be a part of that decision too. That's one of our admission process things. But I would say the website, go there first.
And what is the website?
It is lightacademywichita.com.
Perfect. Okay. Fantastic. And you guys are meeting in Central Community Church. Is that right?
Maple
That's
and Ridge.
the amazing church hosting Light Academy, and Pastor Bob there. So it's
right
incredible.
Off too. So even if you're East Side or North, it's right off of Kellogg. It's not hard to get to. So,
and people carpool. We have people from Bel Air and Andover and everywhere.
Derby.
Well, yeah. Who knows? You might have somebody come from Partridge. Like, is it too far?
Get a bus and take them.
Yeah, right. All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for being on the show. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. Until next week, we will talk to you then.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.